For the fourth consecutive year, South America will host the Dakar Rally, the most demanding rally in the world, from the 1st to the 15th of January. But this year, the route has a new look, running from the Atlantic coast of the Pacific between Mar del Plata and Lima. Etienne Levine is the Dakar Rally Director. Says for 3 years now we've always been in Buenos Aires and always went to Buenos Aires. This time we'll be going back to Dakar's typical spirit for the event, which means it starts from one point and then just goes 8,000 kilometers away, and we're going to be passing through half of the South American continent. Unbelievable. Argentina, Chile and Peru. David Castero is saying the route will obviously start in Argentina again, with the new starting point of Mar del Plata, and then we go mainly on roads, but really brittle and surprising ones, quite difficult and different from the WRC type. And then we're going to Fiambala, and on this part we've worked to keep the ambience of real difficulty over those dunes. They're white dunes created as well, almost it seems, to give motorcycle riders particular hell, he says. And then we're crossing into Chile, passing through the Cordillera and the Copiapó, and the first special stage in Antofagasta after the rest day. And there won't be any sand, but mainly roads at that point. But boy, oh boy, are there plenty of dunes around here. Obviously a salt zone as well, which is all very interesting. Dried salt beds, lakes, and famous, he said, in this part of the world. And then crossing back over the famous transition into Peru, which is new territory for everybody, and it's going to be an amazing novelty out there. Very difficult and different. Yes, real African ambience, a lot of dunes, a lot of sand. And we have to count on important changes in the classification. Well, we have the Dakar with difficult stages, less difficult stages, and then very, very difficult ones. It's a big alternation, he says. And at once, yeah, the opportunity to join the recce team was offered to us for the last 4 stages in Peru, and of course we took it. And why not? Sporting director David Castera, the driver Jean-Pierre Fontenay, Etienne Levine himself, Fontenay Dakar winner in 1998, and during the week in October, validating the route that had already been planned, just to make sure that everything was in order. And of course the bivouac sites, nice and flat. Oh, he did a lot of exploring, Sir David Castera, in months of September 2010, November 2010. And yes, we've been busy with this since March, actually. And yes, we've remodeled the route, adjusting it just a bit. But we can say the course, well, it's looking very, very good indeed. A real test. Well, the terrain is full of surprises. The change in the landscape will be progressive. From the very first stage, though, competitors will be tested. Fesh comes in early. We hear a lot of that term on the Dakar. It's a real nightmare. But what exactly is it? Jean-Pierre Fontenay explains the phenomena to you and me secretly. It's basically like talcum powder, extraordinarily fine sand. So here is Fesh. The stuff is absolutely horrible. It gets everywhere, and not a single car is Fesh proof, he says. It's absolute murder, and you need an enormous amount of power to get through it, and you really get the impression that you've lost 150 horsepower when you hit it. It's definitely very difficult, and often there are stones and rocks hidden here as well, which is bad for the bikers. Some of the big ones really do catch you by surprise and damage the machinery. So you've got to get across them, and sometimes you know, you can lift the plates under the car, cause punctures. Gosh, it is not a funny thing to deal with, says JP. Fesh. It'll be a familiar term to you very soon. It makes the dust that hangs in the air at nightfall, and you can't see anything, not even your own bonnet. And then there are hollows and, yes, amazing pits sometimes, with 40 or 50 centimeters deep, so you just don't know they're there. It's a nightmare. Well, when it's a wide off-road section, you can alter direction to avoid most of the problems, but if the trail narrows, that spells trouble, especially if there's traffic around in the soft stuff. So organisers have tried to avoid as much as possible some of the worst bits. Thankfully, though, Peru offers a different terrain of spectacular dune areas with kind of heavier sand, which is good. Well, we're gliding softly into a new landscape, new area of dunes. It's a transition, says David. Well, for some, these dunes will be the first Peruvian ones that they've encountered. but they're far from the last they will face. A huge surprise was the sheer number of dune areas, each with their own character, don't forget. It's not particularly difficult, but there are some nice holes in this particular area. And for the first cars, it might be possible to get stuck 10, 15 minutes, that kind of thing. And from the opening stages as well, it could be a nightmare. The order can never be known. Absolutely. Difficult rally to call, this one. We'll come to the main favourites a little later. Well, for a while now, practically since the start of the rally, it's been like this. We're looking for the dunes now, and we're trying to avoid them, he says. Getting tired even making the road book, for goodness sake. Imagine if he was in full racing competition. Quite a job, not one that comes up very often, unfortunately. There'll be plenty of applicants, I think. Yes, the dunes, they won't be the only test. Competitors have various types of fantastic landscape to contend with. Look at that. Well, it's nice when you arrive at the top of a slope and then you see an enormous hole like this. You really want to go down fast, and when you arrive at the top, you just say, oh my God, can you imagine being here at night? Nice to drive, though, he says. Scary, too. Definitely amazing. Well, beautiful landscapes, one thing, but sandy canyons, fast, twisty tracks, a bit of trialing thrown in. There'll be traps everywhere. Oh dear. Well, this is exactly what you should not do, he says. Well, the sun already going down at this point. You can't ride the roadbook in the dark, and so time to stop, prepare the bivouac for a night in the middle of the stage. It gets quite cold out there, and luckily, Argentinian steaks are on hand to provide a hearty meal. I think it's a nice piece of meat. Maybe a bit small. What the heck? Small, my goodness. Sun up, time to get on with it. Well, more surprises waiting for the team the very next morning. Well, if you get to some of these just a bit too fast, you could be in trouble. Etienne Levine, Dakar Rally Director, highlights the problem.
T'arrives un peu vite là?
You've got to be careful on approaches such as this. My goodness, you could base jump off there. Not the sort of thing you should be doing in a 4x4 or a bike. Well, we can't let the route get too close to this because we're going to lose somebody. They're going to need parachutes out there. Yes. So they'll look for an alternative route, and maybe if anyone's got time they can come and look at the scenery, but that's the sort of scenery that bites. As soon as you're back on the trail, you'll follow around the edge of a private estate, he says. And then sometimes you change the route if the terrain has changed since their last recce, and it does. Weather conditions have a big impact. Yes, when we came here in March, says David, it was absolutely nothing there, but now it seems we're heading into an agricultural zone and there's a plantation, which means we have to go around the whole zone and try to find better solutions for everyone. We have to conduct the rally in an appropriate manner, he says. Quite right. Going to go a bit further, even more behind. Don't want to be going over crops, for goodness sake. Well, more than 60 days of recce, and yes, where necessary, changes made in the 4 stages in Peru. Yes, that's why the racing director and the sporting director are here to make those adjustments for the final recce. And just after the break, we'll find them back on track and discover how they build the stages and how they map the difficulty ratings along the way. Important beacons and markers given out at the bivouac every night just to get people mentally prepped for the next day, highlighting the dangers they're in. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. We're in Peru with the Dakar Recce team. busy creating the best stage possible for the riders. Both the course is a different one for the cars and trucks and motorbikes. There is a reason for it. It's a bit narrow, and in the middle of those rocks and stones, you can't bring the machines together. It's the end of a long stage, looking for some easier solutions, particularly for the amateur riders who will be at this point at night. Yes, we wanted to create a different stage here for the motorbikes, which will be a bit longer. They'll have to be separated, and a different bivouac without assistance, in fact. Well, you don't want to get a bit more left here, he says. Just see where we are. It could be a bit better on the left, a few kilometers perhaps. Definitely always thinking about them. So this is the Pampas, he says. Just following the trail.
Non, on est obligé de faire quelques aménagements parce que ils n'ont pas forcément la culture rallye Dakar avec tout ce que ça comporte.
Let's head down to the river, he says.
C'est vrai que des fois il faut un peu retailler ce que nous sommes en train de faire.
Yeah, you've got to make a few adjustments. Everything has to be absolutely perfect. You need to restructure things just a little bit occasionally. The idea is to make the part a little bit easier, finishing everything in this part, and then the track's down here, he says, checking everything. Well, I don't think we're going to find a solution tonight, that's for sure. Okay.
C'est bon, je le fais par la route. On sait ce qu'il y a maintenant. C'est la guerre jusqu'au bout.
Well, we're not going to discover anything new here. There's a track in the river. Maybe that's where we're going to go. Well, we'll see. The end in sight. Well, I want to go and check if there isn't another route closer to the hills. Well, we've got to make a bivouac here anyway, so let's head into the Rio. Tents prepared for the night. Time to study some maps and then switch off the torches. It's an arduous task, making it competitive, interesting, and of course safe. Well, there are going to be more kilometres than originally planned, and it won't be as fast as planned. All those parameters make us hesitate just a little bit. We're already prepared, the stage for the cars and for the trucks, and that's done. So today it's about motorcycles, and we wanted to have a separate bivouac. Still exists, but things are actually not exactly the way we wanted them to be. So we're here to find the right adjustments for tomorrow morning, so that we're not going to lose too much time. And this is why tonight that all our maps, we're regrouping, if you like. Yes. Will you find a solution? Yeah, it's not good when the difficulties arrive at the end of the day. It's better if they happen at the beginning of the day, but you know, as soon as night falls, you have to think about the competitors and how they're going to manage on the trail, and it gets really tough for them, so it's tough for us as well. So the next morning, research continues to find the best way possible for the bikes. No exit, no way out. Asking for an entry into the river. Yes, there's an entry, but there's no exit is the answer. Small exit and a path, but too narrow for a car. So, maybe time to get the motorcycle out. Check it out for real. As you know, the passage could be very difficult. Our friend will accompany us to show us the narrow passage and where only a motorbike can pass. Sounds good. We'll have to wait and see. Part cartography and part local advice. Why not? See that? Right next to the water. Goes down there, enters, but a 4x4 wouldn't get through. There's a small path that we're talking about. Only the bikes will get there. Says you can't see it from here. Way over there. It's quite steep. Well, it should be quite possible to pass. Let's have a look. Intrepid, these boys. Down they go to take a closer look. And this is what all the bike riders would have to pass through. Well, if a car can make it, so can they. Well, more like trialing in places. Wouldn't be the first time.
Là, il y a une marche quand même, mais bon, ça doit passer là, regarde.
Well, it's quite steep here, but it should be possible to pass.
Il y a une belle piste et il n'y a pas le passage, c'est quand même dommage.
There's a nice road over there, but no passage. It's a pity. We'll try and find a solution to get the cars over there. Well, the test for the bikes will be finalised later. The first passage, you've got to get the cars through as well somehow. Temporary solutions, perhaps bridges. Well, they all have their place. We'll take another break and we'll be back to discover more about the Peruvian stages of this upcoming Dakar. Let's hope the competitors don't have to become royal engineers along the way. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Peru. We're with the Recce team. Better put another kilometre in here, he says. Yes, back in the dunes as well. There's not a single trace here. No car has ever gone in this place, which means that we've got difficulties ahead. So a bit of trialling, some Rios, some water as well. They won't be the only surprises for the competitors. Those small dunes remind everyone of those found in Africa. Really soft. Trouble ahead. It's a good job they could laugh. We did 500 meters. Well, you can try and reach the top slowly to see what's behind, but it's not possible. It's really soft. So you've just got to keep your speed, and when you're on top, you drive. You just don't know where you're going to land.
Non, mais j'étais pas inquiet. Mais bon, c'est vrai que c'est sympa parce que c'est vrai que ça fait longtemps qu'on n'a pas eu.
Well, I'm not worried, he says. Actually, I'm having fun.
Que les grosses dunes parce que
the whole lot, though, it's going to be the same situation for everybody. It's definitely much more difficult than those big dunes because you don't have time to decide anything. So waiting for them.
Bon, l'avantage c'est qu'on le savait.
They won't have the same advantages of having somebody to call like yourselves. JP summing it up. Alone, this would be a nightmare.
Attends, bouge pas, c'est mou.
Wait, it's too soft, he says, to pull us out this way. Well, indeed, the team getting stuck dozens of times in these small and vicious dunes. Yes, and realising what it means for the competitors along the way. Some of whom won't have any help, and it could be the end of many a challenge right here. Don't forget, this is towards the end of the rally as well. It could be heartbreak territory, this.
À 2 jours d'arrivée, je pense que ça peut.
2 days before the end of the rally, and it's going to be very interesting. There's definitely an African flair here. It's like Mauritania, the dunes between Tunisia and Mauritania. Some guys will be surprised, not because of the height of the dunes, but their sheer difficulty. Other surprises. Well, what about a long beach? Hey, he said, now this is really nice. Reminds JP and Jackie of emotional times in Africa, where the traditional last stage of the Dakar ran, of course, down the beach before turning inland to the finish line of the Lac Rose. It's great. They're going to be privileged if they get here, because to be able to drive next to the Pacific, wow, that's going to be something. Dakar Rally is back. When you arrived at the Lac Rose, you had the impression of sheer satisfaction, he says. Yeah, emotional. Deep in your guts. Well, to be as fast as possible, you need to stay close to water. And as soon as a wave arrives, you just take it with a hit. Small bumps like this, and you really want the maximum speed, so you've got to stay where the sand is hard, and that means wet but not soaked. Some tips.
C'est assez unique de pouvoir tracer ce type
Well, it's
de
quite
spécial,
unique to have the
puisque sur
opportunity to draw
pratiquement,
these kinds of
40
special
à 50
stages.
kilomètres, on
For
va
more
avoir
than
le
50
Pacifique
kilometers, we're going to have
gauche,
the
des dunes à
Pacific on the
droite,
left
et on va
and the dunes
remonter
on the
en
right.
longeant la mer.
And
Donc,
we're going to go up
des
north
images
along the sea with
exceptionnelles, et puis
fantastic
surtout des
pictures, and for
souvenirs,
sure
futurs
it's
pour
going to
nos
be
concurrents qui seront,
providing some amazing
qui seront
memories for the
fabuleux.
competitors. Well, a bit further on, competitors find, yes, more beach runs. They'll find also dunes, different ones, different difficulties. Yes, reading the sand is going to be what it's all about this year.
Alors attends, on va filer un cap.
Well, we better take a note of this cap at around 300, he says. Waypoints to help people through. Be careful, a broken dune. Yes, ever a threat. And here is that broken dune. And the big difference compared to this morning is that here we can pass by slowly. Definitely easier. Well, maybe we spoke too quickly. He said I've stopped. You better pass on my left side because it looks like I've got a flat. Well, so far it's absolutely crazy, he says. Indeed, navigation in the dunes is even more difficult, and if you make any mistakes and follow the wrong valley, it can take hours before you manage to find your way out. Don't forget, they're selecting the best routes through, and you see how tough this is. Get it wrong, you're going to be in serious bother. Every decision, you know whether it's the right or the wrong one. Yes, but okay, for the moment, we're all right. We're all together. It's okay, but not fun. Well, extremely dry areas, a lot of sand, a lot of dunes, and long chains of dunes. Something you won't see that much in Atacama. There you'll find mountains of sand. You'll turn around, pass over, real sand lines, chains of sand, and you've got to pass them one after the other, which means very tough, totally different conditions. Well, here amateurs will spend hours getting stuck in the night. The organisers know this, so they're trying to make navigation just a little easier. Well, now we've given them a lot of waypoints so that they can get out of the valleys, because, you know, if you get stuck in one of the big valleys and you're in the wrong one, then it's going to be the end of your competitiveness. Well, if you did the last note at the top, you've got to put a waypoint there to be sure that you're going to lead them off. It's amazing. We have never seen quite so many dunes for quite a while now. At least 3 years. Well, stuck again before night time. Time to get the tents out. I'm not sure this is where we're supposed to sleep tonight, but we'll be all right. We're right in the middle of those dunes. The moon is there. It's just a bit of a shame that we're just 5 kilometers away from the finish. I think that when the competitors reach the finish line, they're going to be glad to see the end of it. They won't be asking for more dunes afterwards, that's for sure. Well, it's nice that you've seen everything in just a few kilometers. It's a really nice example of rally. You've got all the kinds of terrain you want, some rocky areas, some camel grass here, some soft sand, some hard sand. They're going to suffer a lot here, though, we know that. And, well, just don't lose the track, for goodness sake. Here, we're going reasonably fast. Mechanically, though, the cars are going to really suffer. If you can take your time, there's no real particular technique, but if you can really, if you're attack-minded and you're fighting in an area like this one, wow, it's going to be a crisis of decisions. You're going to have to know the best way, and you're going to have a lot of luck, and you cannot go off the road book. You're always convinced that someone else has got a better way, but you've just got to have belief. Well, flat sand, along with the terrain and the landscape, just fantastic, he says. Well, Peru will be sand and dunes, sand and dunes in all their forms, promising a hectic and perhaps harrowing end to Dakar 2012. It's certainly not one that we'll be able to predict until the winner has crossed the line. Well, during the reconnaissance in Peru, we discovered a 4-day race of a very high level with a lot of surprises. They're going to rediscover landscapes, some who are lucky, from a few years ago in Africa, which means the Dakar will not be over until we get into Peru, and I mean it won't be over until we get to the finish line. Very complex it is. Imagine passing those stages on the same route with a combination helmet on of racing. You've got your boots for the bikers, and it's going to be even tougher at night. Some will be passing through then. It's beautiful, he says. Let's hope we don't get any fog. Oh my goodness, another factor to consider.
I
honestly think that this will be the toughest Dakar of the last 4 years. On a sporting level, on a pleasure side, an adventure level, it's really something massive. They're definitely going to live an extraordinary adventure here, one that they will never forget. I think that Peru will make Dakar history and maybe even in the long term be one of the great ones. So new landscape, new terrain, new difficulties. Peru will add a new adventure, a lot of emotion for all the competitors, more than ever. I'll probably get a bit choked myself along the way. Those sort of things happen when you're commentating the Dakar. Well, I'll be there, and so hopefully you'll be able to join me from January 1st, 2012.